MLS is back with a full match day on Saturday with 13 games, and we have 5 picks plus 1 parlay for our MLS picks for Week 17. Let's get right into it and start off with Inter Miami and DC United. It's back-to-back shutouts against Miami as the Herons head into Week 17 against DC this weekend. They lost 1-0 at home to the Red Bulls on Wednesday and 1-0 to Montreal in the match prior. That also extends their current losing streak to 4 games. Now, those results have contributed to Miami being last in the East, and that cost head coach Phil Neville his job on Thursday, leaving assistant Javier Morales to step in on an interim basis. Prior to those recent defeats, though, Miami's games had seen lots of goals with 4, 3, 3, 3, and 3 again in the previous games, with both teams scoring in each of those 5 games. At DRV, PNK Stadium, Miami, win or lose, they do rarely draw, have scored in 21 of their past 23 games. Now, DC drew 2-2 at home to Montreal on Wednesday, and they lost 2-1 in Toronto last weekend. They have a single loss, but also just a single win in their past 5 as they're 1-3-1. In 2 meetings last season, the teams drew 2-2 in Miami, and Miami won 3-2 in DC. That's Miami's only win over DC in the short head-to-head history between these teams. DC owns a 3-1-1 all-time record over the 5 meetings. Now, DC doesn't keep very many clean sheets. They have just 3 this season. And on the road, DC has only 3 wins in their past 18. But Miami has kept just 2 clean sheets this season and none since week 2. They've also conceded the joint most shots on target, 78, alongside Colorado this season. I can't trust either team to win in this spot on Saturday. Miami could get the new coach bump after firing Neville. So let's just go both teams to score, and that's at minus 150 odds. Our second bet is going to go to NYCFC and New England. After a 3-1 midweek defeat to Cincinnati, coupled by Toronto and Chicago picking up a point each in their 0-0 draw, the Pigeons have dropped to sole possession of 14th place in the East at 4-4-7 with just 16 points. Now, for as bad as New York City have been away from home at 0-3-5, they've at least been more competitive at home where they're 4-1-2. They've also scored in 12 of their past, where they've scored 12 of their 17 goals this season. In fact, they've actually scored a goal in each of their 7 games in New York so far. But home or away across all competitions, New York is winless in 7, and they've been outscored 13-5. For the Revolution, if you told Bruce Arena his team would score 6 goals across 2 games, even without the services of some of his top players, you'd think he'd be thrilled. However, despite scoring 3 goals in back-to-back games, the Reds have also allowed 3 goals in each of those games, off a 3-3 draw with Atlanta and also Chicago. They've actually allowed 3 goals in 3 straight games when you include a 3-0 road loss to Philadelphia. They're now winless in 5, and they've been outscored 12-7. These teams just met in April in Foxborough, resulting in a 1-1 draw. Each team put 3 shots on target, with Carles Gil and Talis Magno canceling each other out, with late goals to see the teams split the points. I think this one could be a bit more open once again, where we see both teams scoring, but someone finding a second goal. A bet on both teams scoring in over 2.5 is 5-2, and on a 4-0 run in New York City home games. Let's go both teams to score in over 2.5 at plus 110 odds. Our third best bet this weekend is going to go to Cincinnati and Chicago. The Supporters Shield leading FC Cincinnati. They went in New York on Wednesday, and they walked away with a 3-1 road win. FCC are 8 points clear with 36 points compared to second place Nashville with just 28. Luciano Acosta, Alvaro Barreal, and Brandon Vasquez all tallied for Cincy in Wednesday's win, their 5th straight, where they've outscored opponents 12-4. Cincinnati's also undefeated in 7, and they still have just a single defeat on the season at 11-3-1. At home at TQL Stadium, that record is still spotless at 8-0 to go with 15 goals scored and just 5 conceded. At home, Cincinnati has just 1 loss in their past 19 games, though, dating back to last season. If you add in a couple U.S. Open Cup wins this season, that pushes that to just 1 home loss in their past 21. Now, contrast that with Chicago's road form, and it could be a long day for the Fire on Saturday. They're 1-2-4 away from home this season, and they have just 2 road wins in their past 12 games and 4 in their past 12. That said, Chicago has been treading water of late with 3 straight draws, 0-0 against Toronto, 3-3 New England, and 3-3 Atlanta, but it's still only 1 win in 9 in league play for Frank Kloputz's side. I like a Cincinnati win here to push that home record to 9-0. That's at minus 145 odds. Our fourth best bet is going to go to the St. Louis City and Houston Dynamo game. Cincy came out strong. They dipped for a bit. City came out strong. They dipped for a bit in the past few weeks, but they've now won back-to-back games over SKC, 4-0, and Vancouver, 3-1. At home at City Park, they're 5-0-2 with 19 goals scored and just 6 conceded. Now, rather than continuing to go too deep into this one, I want to wrap this one out quick by flipping that over to their opponent's road form. Houston is still winless on the road, and they're 0-2-5, and they've been outscored 16-6 this season when not at home. But if you look back even further into Houston's road results, they have just 4 road wins in their past 49 MLS away games. Wow, that's just really terrible. They just got thumped 6-2 in Vancouver on Wednesday, and they'll be traveling back across the country to play a rested St. Louis team that didn't play in midweek. So extra rest for St. Louis at home to a team terrible on the road. Let's go for St. Louis win at -118 odds. Next up, Vancouver Whitecaps and Sporting Kansas City. It's the late game on Saturday night. The Whitecaps aren't typically one of the league's higher scoring teams, but quietly, at least to me, their 25 goals are tied for the 4th most in the league. Brian White leads the way with 6 goals, including goals in back-to-back games, followed by Simon Belcher with 4. Only Atlanta, Columbus, and St. Louis have scored more than the Whitecaps this season. Vancouver has the 2nd most attempts and 4th most shots on target, while only Seattle has a higher XG than the Caps on this year so far. Vancouver's recent games have all been high scoring, going 5-1 to bets on both teams to score and over 2.5 in their past 6. They just put 6 past Houston on Wednesday in a 6-2 win, and now they'll face one of the league's hottest teams in Sporting Kansas City. Sporting have collected the most points, 10 of any Western Conference team over the past 5 rounds, in addition to the 13 points in the month of May, which was also the most of any Western Conference team. SKC are hot lately. They're 4-1-1 in their past 6, and they've won 2 straight, 2-1 over Dallas and 4-1 over Portland. Daniel Salloi leads the team in scoring with goals, with 4, including goals in each of his past 2 games. With their top players actually on the field now, SKC are becoming more dangerous, but they've still allowed an XGA of 1.1 or higher in 9 straight games and also in 13 of 16 games this season. I think this late game could see some goals. Let's go both teams to score over 2.5 at even money plus 100. Finally, I'm going with 2 teams in a parlay as the last best bet of the weekend. And let's start it off with one of the big favorites on the card, and it's Philadelphia at home to Montreal. There's a big contrast in home and away records between these teams. Philly is 5-2-1 with 14 goals scored and just 5 conceded at home this season. Meanwhile, Montreal's 1-1-7, 5 goals for, and 21 conceded away from home. The Union have won 16 of 19 home games in MLS and own a ridiculous 58-11 goal differential in those games when you go back into last season. They've kept clean sheets in each of their past 3 at home and 4 of 5 at home, and they have 5 home clean sheets this season. We can add to these impressive numbers by including that across all competitions, they've lost just 1 of 30 recent home games. Montreal was down 2-0 in DC on Wednesday, but they came back with goals in the 80th and 82nd minutes to draw 2-2, the 7th time, though, in 9 road games this season where they've allowed multiple goals on the road. Montreal also collected points through a comeback against this exact Philly team earlier this season, down 2-1, and after a 69th-minute red card from Julian Carranza, Montreal fought back and they tied with goals in the 90th and 98th minutes to win 3-2. I think Philly responds this time at home and they get a win over Montreal for the first leg of this parlay, and we're going to tie that in to a result in New York Red Bulls and Orlando City. Both of these teams have made money for their under bettors this season. New York especially so at 14-2 to under 2.5 totals, and Orlando to a lesser extent at 8-6. The last 2 meetings between these teams last season were both 1-0 for the Lions. Orlando games have been slightly higher scoring though of late at 1-1, 3-1, 1-1, and 2-2, but considering the Red Bulls are first in shot attempts allowed, first in shots allowed on target, and third in XGA and in goals allowed, and have only seen more than 1 goal scored in their past 6 games once, this looks like another low-scoring game. You could likely just bet under 2.5 in this game by itself at -150, but for the added safety, betting under 3.5 in this parlay is another option. New York is 16-0 to under 3.5 totals, while Orlando is 11-3. So this parlay is going to be Philadelphia to win and under 3.5 with New York and Orlando for -105. So to wrap up this week's MLS picks, we're going with Miami and DC, both teams to score, New York City FC and New England, both teams to score in over 2.5, Cincinnati win, St. Louis win, Vancouver and SKC, both teams to score in over 2.5, and a parlay with Philadelphia to win and the Red Bulls and Orlando under 3.5. Those are my picks this weekend. Good luck with yours. Be sure to give this video a like, give it a subscribe up there, and thanks. Good luck, everybody, this weekend.